poppy plant and opium, the global heroin supply, black tar versus white powder heroin, street names for heroin, how it messes with the brain, health effects, and who tends to use it. First, let's talk about where opium and heroin comes from, the poppy plant. The poppy plant is short for its scientific name of Papaver somniferum. This is an annual herb, grows anywhere from 2 to 5 feet tall, and after 3 months after being planted, it grows and develops 4 to 8 very large, pretty petals, usually white, purplish, pink, violet, bluish, or red in color. Once the petals fall off, the seed pod becomes exposed. While the seed pod is still unripened, farmers take a curved knife and slice shallow, vertical cuts into the pod, and then a milky sap oozes out. Ew. As the sap oozes, it turns darker and thicker and begins to turn into a brownish-black gummy substance. Farmers harvest the gummy substance the following day by scraping it off the pod with a knife and later forming it into cakes or balls, and then they package them up. This is raw opium. The raw opium is processed in makeshift laboratories to create heroin. The main drug in opium is morphine, and raw opium has about 10% morphine. So in the laboratory process where heroin is made through adding an extra 2 acetyl groups to morphine, right here. These acetyl groups make it easier for heroin to enter the brain, actually making it 2 to 3 times more potent than morphine. But here's the thing, once heroin enters the brain, the acetyl groups go away, and heroin turns into morphine. Once heroin is made, it's then shipped in various amounts and routes to Europe, Russia, Central Asia, China, and North America. The global heroin supply comes from 3 major regions: the Southeast Asia, Southwest Asia, and Latin America. The supply in Southeast Asia is commonly known as the Golden Triangle. The supply in Southwest Asia is commonly known as the Golden Crescent. In Southwest Asia, the Golden Crescent, Afghanistan is the world's largest opium supplier. In fact, according to the United Nations, in 2010, Afghanistan provided 80% of the world's opium. But in this class, we're going to focus on Latin America because of its influence on the United States. Alright, so during the 1990s, Latin America became the largest supplier of heroin to the United States, with Mexican heroin being most prevalent west of the Mississippi River, and Colombian heroin being most prevalent east of the Mississippi. On that note, since 2001, Colombia has started to decrease its growth of poppy plants and heroin. However, since that time, Mexico cultivation of poppy plants has quadrupled. The type of heroin made in Mexico is called black tar heroin. Black tar heroin is a black, sticky substance. It has this color and substance because of the way it's processed in Mexico. It doesn't require as much intricate laboratory techniques, and the result is black tar heroin. Users typically inject black tar. The type of heroin made in Colombia is a white, odorless powder that is a much purer form of heroin compared to black tar. Although drug dealers will often dilute or cut this type of heroin with other substances like sugar, starch, or powdered milk, and a whole wide range of other substances. Colombian heroin is usually snorted or smoked, but it can also be injected. The street purity of heroin ranges anywhere from 11 to 72%, with the average in the US being about 38%. There's a whole bunch of different street names for heroin. Can you recognize any of them? Alright, so how is heroin injected? Injecting heroin into one's veins is often called shooting or banging. The supplies that people use for injecting heroin include a spoon, which is usually bent so the spoon lays flat on a hard surface when drawing the heroin into a syringe. If the spoon didn't lay flat, the heroin would spill out of the spoon. Other supplies include a lighter, a cotton ball, a syringe and needle, and of course heroin. The heroin is placed on the spoon and mixed with water, usually unsterile water. Then the bottom of the spoon is heated with a lighter to help dissolve the heroin into the water. This is known as cooking heroin. Once the heroin is dissolved or cooked, the user puts the cotton ball on the spoon. This helps to filter out any large impurities. Then the syringe and needle is placed into the cotton ball to draw the heroin out. Then the heroin is injected into the blood, also usually done without sterilization. Sometimes heroin users develop a needles fixation, where a strong association between the euphoria of heroin is associated with the process of setting up the supplies and injecting the needle into the skin. Users report enjoying the process of setting up and injection as much as the drug itself. So how does it mess with the brain? Heroin, which turns into morphine when it gets to the brain, mimics certain neurotransmitters that fall under a general umbrella of endogenous opioids. These neurotransmitters are enkephalins and endorphins. These neurotransmitters are associated with pain relief, sedation, mood, and the rate of our bodily functions. Morphine fits into the receptors of these neurotransmitters. So here's the health effects of using heroin. It actually has some benefits like pain relief, stopping intense diarrhea, because opioids slow down the rate in which our intestines contract, and it's a cough suppressant. Users also experience euphoria. Heroin abusers report feeling a surge of euphoria known as a rush, followed by sort of a twilight state of sleep and wakefulness and dreams, and feelings of contentedness. They also feel dry mouth and heaviness in the arms and legs. It should also be noted that there are a lot of people who don't experience euphoria their first time using heroin. Often they'll feel sick and throw up. But there may be social pressure to try it again and again, and soon they may begin to experience the pleasant effects of heroin. A lot of heroin users also use heroin to avoid withdrawal just as much as they do to get high. Which brings us into the negative effects of using heroin. Dependence. It's estimated that about 23% of individuals who use heroin become dependent on it. And they have a lot of withdrawal symptoms in that dependence, such as the following. Users can feel these withdrawal symptoms anywhere from 4 to 8 hours after their last use. They can also experience overdose, which is going into a coma, having really slow, depressed breathing, and pinpoint pupils. Also, they can feel nauseous and vomit. They can have scars and abscesses on their arm or wherever it is that they were injecting the heroin. And although not caused from the drug itself, heroin users are also at an increased risk for malnutrition because they are spending money on drugs and not food, and more worried about not going through withdrawal and getting high than eating food. And they are at risk for developing HIV or hepatitis if they share needles with others. So who tends to use heroin? Hardly anyone. In 2012, a national study showed that 0.1% of people currently use heroin. In conclusion, heroin comes from morphine, which comes from opium, which comes from the poppy plant. There are 3 major producers of heroin in the world, with Mexico and Colombia being the biggest producers for the US. Heroin has several negative health effects.
I got the cash in the bag, stadium packed. Born a rock star in this life, gone live it up on the attack. Baby, I'm bad, I just wanna get caught up in this life. I'm crazy, I'm mad, doing no cap. Only got one, so you better go live it up. Cash in the bag, stadium packed. Baby, I'm bad, baby, I'm bad.
I just wanna stay bad, stay mad. Chip on my shoulder cause they treat me like an outcast. I ain't gonna take that, stay back. I'll be swinging hard till the hits come in all caps. I ain't gonna lay back, pray that someone's gonna help me, ain't nobody like that. I ain't gonna wait, that's all fact. Give me one shot and I'll never get the throne back. I'm sick of being cautious, I'ma go cause something, can't stop this. I'ma steal everybody's lane, call it shoplift. Sick of hearing everyone.
Though it's still being used, Rohypnol is kinda hard to find. These days, the drugs being slipped into your glass of bubbly are primarily GHB, or liquid ecstasy, zolpidem, scopolamine, and a few lesser-known benzodiazepines. Once the substance is ingested through the mouth, it is digested and absorbed in the gastrointestinal tract, passes through the liver and is carried to the brain through the circulatory system. The drug is then carried through the circulatory system to the cells. Most absorption occurs within 5 to 30 minutes, but is not completed for up to 6 to 8 hours. The molecular structure is similar to that of neurotransmitters, and it basically takes on the action of the naturally occurring gamma-aminobutyric acid, which stimulates sedation, relaxation, drowsiness, and depression. Combined with alcohol, though, the drug has an additive or synergistic effect, which basically means 2 or more drugs combine to produce an effect greater than the effect of either drug taken alone. Once in the system, the drug mimics the action of a neurotransmitter and activates or occupies the receptor to prevent the neurotransmitter from activating it, which, long story short, affects the brain's ability to receive, process, and respond to information by carrying impulses, which in turn affects your sensory nerves and motor nerves, which is why you end up falling down like a fool. Okay, that makes sense, but we still wanted to see firsthand what a roofie trip looks like. So we conned Corinne and Lee into taking some.
I'm scared, but I am reassured that there is a doctor present. I'm pretty sure we're gonna live through the night.
Corinne's definitely gonna fall asleep, and I might as well. I'm gonna try not to, though.
Am I alive? You're alive.
Am I good? Alive? Excellent. If I wasn't paying that much attention,
I wouldn't see it.
I wouldn't see that.
I can't see it
Really?
now.
Yeah.
I just want to do a shout out and say, do you feel high yet? Do you feel different yet? No. How do you feel?
How do you feel, Corinne?
I feel fine for now.
Do both at the same time, right?
No,
It was left foot.
Both left foots
both of
are
my left
green.
feet.
Yes, I need both of your left foots.
That's not how it works, yeah?
I knew drunk was going to win this party. I must put this down before I start.
Give it to your sober friend.
That's the right foot now.
Oh, that's Masoni.
Drunk still knows left and right.
I'll do that.
Yes. Let's move this
I think
along.
we've ascertained we can play Twister at this level of intoxication. Left foot blue.
I feel heavy.
Left foot.
That's all I can do.
You might be slightly motor impaired, but I don't think rape is on the cards
I think
Yeah.
you guys think I'm doing okay. I'm like not interested in your bullshit right now because I don't feel right. But you seem fucking fine.
No, I'm fine.
Why?
I don't know, maybe the second pill didn't dose me as hard as I thought it would.
Maybe if you were in a club, would you have left the herd now to go to the bathroom?
What if someone had come and tried to help you away from the herd? Would you have accepted their help?
Don't ask questions. I think I need to go have a bomb for real.
Did you have a vom? Yeah. So the roofie's probably out of his system now.
I know, worst day ever. Can we sobriety test you quick? I can do everything.
I think that I'm gonna go throw up again.
Oh, shit. Okay. No, fuck this. I can't blame girls. I've had how much to drink?
Would you like to know?
Yeah, bruh. This poor woman's dead. She's had a drink.
It's very difficult to talk back, to respond, I guess.
Which is good, because I've been trying to teach you not to talk back.
That's on camera.
BEF 042.
And what you were just saying about, for instance, calling Detective Terry and stuff,
Yeah, I mean, if me and Kurt got into a divorce and it came down to a custody battle, I'd win in a second. He wouldn't even put up a fight because obviously his child doesn't mean enough to him to stay in the rehab.
BEF 065.
And maybe the responsibility of being a father and a husband are things that he needs to work on. If he wants to separate and that's going to make him happy, I mean, hell, this year alone, we don't even need to separate. He's supposed to do, Lollapalooza for 4 months of the year, and I'm supposed to be touring 9 months of the year. So this is our first year that we're actually going to be separated for any length of time.
BEF 198.
How much do you want to give me as a retainer?
How much would you like? I'm going to be here all week, so why don't we start out with what you did times 3.
Okay.
And then, or times 4. And then we can go on from there.
Okay.
I mean, money's not a problem. I mean, money is a problem. I mean, if
I know
if we get a divorce and I don't have my publishing deal, money will be a problem, but that's not going to happen for quite some time.
If you've been following my Kurt Cobain coverage, then you will know that my investigations are thorough and exhaustive. That means that sometimes it takes me a little bit longer to put things together, but nevertheless, you should brace yourselves for yet another complicated twist in the Courtney Love story. In today's episode, we'll take a closer look at the death of Seattle narcotics detective Antonio Terry. Yet another friend of Courtney's who was killed under strange circumstances. Well, for this one, I went beyond the titles, articles, and the headlines, and I obtained an exclusive interview that you will only hear on this channel. This is gonna go deep, so buckle up.
Terry on the morning of June 4th, 1994. He was just returning to the South Precinct from a buy bust downtown and ran into a guy jumping in front of cars off the Swift Albro exit. Antonio pulled ahead of a car on the side and walked back towards them to see what was going on. And he was recognized as a narcotics cop. And as he heard someone say he's a cop, he started to return to his vehicle and as a result was shot in the back. He was able to return fire, get back in his car, drive to the South Precinct, and collapsed in the police parking lot. Buzzy Katzer was actually the first officer that got to him. And he didn't know who he was initially because Antonio was in plain clothes. He was driving a plain car, wasn't a police vehicle. And he said, "Buzzy, I'm hit." And then everything happened. Next thing I know, in the early hours of the morning, I got a knock at my door. And my world was just turned upside down.
Officer Terry had stopped on the Swift and Albro off-ramp from the I-5 freeway in Seattle to assist 4 individuals whose Mustang had malfunctioned earlier and had come to a stop on the shoulder of the off-ramp. Officer Terry was wearing civilian clothes and drove by the Mustang in an unmarked police car. Quentin Irvin then jumped out in front of Terry's car, and what happens next in the story has been sharply disputed. All 4 were taken into custody and interrogated. Jeremy McAllister and Ira Potts were released, but Quentin Irvin and Eric Smiley were interrogated further by Seattle Police Homicide Unit. That's right, this investigation was also led by none other than the dishonored homicide detective Don Cameron. Irvin and Smiley's joint trial began in November of 1995 and lasted more than 3 months. There were 86 witnesses who testified that Irvin jumped out in front of Terry's vehicle, flagging him down, and that Terry stepped to the back of his car with his gun in his hand. Irvin and Terry began arguing. Ira Potts testified he saw Irvin pull a gun from his waistband and then heard gunshots. Irvin then ran to Potts and Smiley, who were hiding behind the Mustang, yelling that he got shot.
Yes. What's up?
So you were saying,
So you talked about is the I would rather you hear my story because because the narrative you got from, that you're getting, is from the liars who composed this. So my story, coming from me, is accurate. I'm not going to take nothing away from it. I'm not going to add nothing to it. If I don't know, I'm going to say I don't know.
BEF 042.
And what you were just saying about, for instance, calling Detective Terry and stuff. Yeah, I mean, if me and Kurt got into a divorce and it came down to a custody battle, I'd win in a second. He wouldn't even put up a fight. Because obviously, his child doesn't mean enough to him to stay in the rehab.